Welcome to the Word Bible Software. In today's lesson slash series, we're going to be doing Bible study methods in 3 John chapter 1 verses 5 through 8. Just going to make a quick update to a Facebook Live here. And as we get into this series, we're going to continue on from where we picked up in chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. And in here, we're going through and taking our English Bible, whether you use NASB Net 2 or New King James Version, kind of look using those three versions, and digging in using some Strong's resources and going phrase by phrase. We also have a guide that we've been using to go down through, and that's the New Testament Bible Study Guide, I believe is the name. Let me double check that name. And that is the New Testament Message Bible Study Preparation Guide. There we go. So as we get in, we've already done the book divisions in this one. Let me open up the Word Bible software here and just kind of scoot in a little bit there. Okay. And so here in the middle panel, we have the notes we've been looking at, and if you look at here's from the previous lesson, and we went down through, we kind of divided it into phrases, we labeled some different ones, subject, indirect object, direct object, etc., and then we did a few word studies, and we also divided it into various sections. This is kind of get you started, and this is not to be an all-comprehensive study. This is just to kind of get you into things as we dig into the Word of God. And I'm also going to introduce you to some resources. We used the NASEC last time, which is the NASB Concordance. We also used the VGNTS, Vocabulary of the Greek Testament Student Edition. This has Strong's built into it, and you can see some Greek here. Let me click a little bit of Strong's. Okay, and then we also used AMGL, Abbott Smith's Manual Greek Lexicon of the New Testament. We're going to add to that this time around another couple resources. That's the TDNT, and let me just bring up a topic here. Now this one is much more comprehensive as far as it has certain words, but it goes way more in depth on certain words, and so you can get into see all this here. We will also be adding another resource that has recently added Strong's to it, and that is the BDAG resource, and it's normally Greek. It's a more of an advanced resource, and so this is if you want to dig into some further ones. And so this one covers a great amount of words and gets into a lot of history and Greek and things like that. So, but let's go back to NASEC, which is an excellent resource, and we just get into that quick and easy. So let's go to 3 John 1, 5 through 8. We're using the NASB because it has Strong's, Net 2 with Strong's, and New King James, which does not have Strong's, but is an excellent resource. So it says, Beloved, and remember context. Let's go back to 1 through 4 here, and let's click on that one to bring it up. And the elder to the beloved Gaius. So who is the beloved? It is Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. For I rejoice greatly when brethren came and testified of the truth, that is, in you, just as you walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Now let's go to verse 5 and open up our book here. We know that this is Gaius. We're going to add a little note. We're going to put it in black to indicate it's a note, and so that helps us. You do faithfully whatever you do for the brethren and for strangers. And there's a comma. I'm going to break it there, and there's a period. Jump down a couple. Now we're going by the English layout here, but also kind of I looked over some of the Greek things and just for a little bit of help for later. So let's do here. And we have again, and then we jump down, and lastly we have this. Now, before we go too far, we're going to do a brief comparing, and you can see that here we have book divisions, English text option. So jump down here, comparing, phrasing, grammar, and then main subdivisions. We're basically covering this in this Bible study methods: comparison, phrasing, grammar, main subdivisions. So let's do a little bit of comparison. You can jump into this guide, which is available at thewordbooks.com, and read through it So here's a Bible comparative view, which we actually have up, and let's look at this today. So it says beloved. Here it says dear friends, and he has his beloved. So if you wanted to make a note, you could go something like dear friends, and you could say that's net 2, or NIV, whatever version you might be getting into. We're going to jump it over because this is the subject. We'll put it in bold. And we'll get into grammar later on. So let's continue on. You do faithfully whatever you do for the brother and for strangers. You demonstrate faithfulness by whatever you do for the brothers, even though they are strangers. You are acting faithfully in whatever you accomplish for the brethren, and especially when they are strangers. So there's some interesting differences. Like we said in the previous lesson, we're not going to dig really hard in comparing, because sometimes it can be interesting, but sometimes it can turn into vain babbling if we're not careful. If there's a notable difference, so you are acting faithfully, you demonstrate faithfulness. Beloved, you do faithfully. So there's a little bit acting, demonstrate, do. And you can get into those things. Let's continue down here. Brothers, brethren, the different words here. This is a little bit of an older English word, brethren, even though they are strangers, especially when they are strangers, and for strangers. So there is a little bit of a difference. So let's go down here. And you do faithfully whatever you do for the brothers and strangers. And so let's make a note here, especially. And there's a bracket which indicates in the NASB, well, it's italicized too in the NASB often, especially in the print editions, that this is an addition for clarification, strangers. So we'll put that in black, and that would be, and we're going to just put quotes around just so we know this is a direct quotation, and this is a direct quotation from the NASB as well. And then also here in the net for the brethren, and we're dealing with mostly the last phrase there, and this one has even though they are strangers. So we'll just kind of bring it there. So now we know that if you want to get into those things. Let's continue on to verse 6. And they have testified to your love before the church, who have borne witness of your love before the church. They have testified to your love before the church. And so who have borne witness of your love before the church, and witness could be testified. And we notice that NASB and net to use testified. So we'll continue on. Let's go a little bit further. Before the church, you send them forward. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. On their journey in a manner worthy of God, you will do well. Okay, you will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. Basically similar. 7, because they went forth for his name's sake, taking nothing from the Gentiles, for they have gone forth on behalf of the name, accepting nothing from the pagans. Okay, for they went out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing for the Gentiles. So Gentiles and pagans, let's put that in there, pagans, and that would be here they're taking the context behind the word Gentiles and interpreting it as referring to those that are unbelievers. So we have that's net 2. Okay, and let's continue on. And verse 8. We therefore ought to receive such that we may become fellow workers for the truth. Therefore we ought to support such people so that we become fellow co-workers in cooperation with the truth. Therefore we ought to support such men so that we may be fellow workers with the truth. So receive, support. That is interesting there. Therefore we ought to receive such. So let's go here, and we're going to put to support. And that would be net 2, NASB, and net 2. So we'll go there. Now you probably will notice it looks like we have so this would be a difference in manuscripts here. or receive such men as guests. So it's very interesting. Kind of Nasby and New King James point that out. 17 here. Let's see net 2 if it gives us a. Let's see here. I don't see much in the way of that. A note on that. Okay. Now let's go back here and begin to divide things out. You do is a verb. Faithfully. Let's jump that over. One more. Okay. Whatever you do. So in here we get again. Whatever you do, and we have another verb here. And I'm going to jump over to just to check out on. Okay, you may do. Okay, so this is whatever you do may do, basically, and we're gonna just put a may. Well, I'm gonna make a note here. It's a verb, but it's also under a subjunctive. We're not quite into the grammar yet, but it'll help us. Let's see, bold, italicized. Okay, and that is there. And instead of bold, we do italicized. And whatever is possibly, I'll go back here to my notes. It helps me a little bit because these give a little bit of. Okay, yep, it is an accusative there. Okay, for the brethren, and for strangers, and I believe this would go jump over there. I'll just double check again with my notes. Okay, it is. Go back one more. Okay, so these would fall under there. Who have borne witness. So who have testified, and so who have borne witness, and that might be all compiled from one word, the one whom have borne witness. So it's putting it all together. So who is the subject, and borne witness, and it's interesting. In this particular one, in the Greek, there's a subject and then another subject in the verb itself, and sometimes that indicates a amplification or a who even they have borne witness, kind of a emphasizing of your love before the church. So we go in here, and I'm going to just double check again. Now you do not need to do this. How do you say this? Your love before church. Okay, my English being my first language, it was never my my strongest subject in school, and so I often refer to some other resources to help me along the way. If you have a real excellent grasp on English grammar, this is not something you would need to do in as much. So this would be indirect object, and we have a verb here. And it's probably a verb that is born. Yep, it kind of could be a past tense, but it's actually more of a momentary occurrence. So it's a verb. It's in the indicative, which indicates it's something very factually as concerned by the author. This is the direct object. Okay. So we got a few things noted here, and this is also, this is the subject. Okay, very good. Continuing on down, of your love before the church, and this is kind of defining, connecting back to love. Let's see, actually, it is before the church. Of your love. Let's see, where does this go? Just like that. And the church is a genitive singular. Okay, with a preposition. Very good. Okay, continuing on now here. Continuing to the next section. Let me look a little bit at the time we've been recording. About 14:42. Let's go a little bit faster. If you send them forward on their journey in a manner worthy of God. If you send, so you send, we got a conditional here at the start of this, and well, not right. There is, it's in italics also. So you send them, so them, and we're just gonna, you will send, or you will do, forward in a manner worthy of the gospel, in manner worthy of God. So let's just put this into the indicative indirect object for now. Forward on their journey. Looking at that briefly in my notes over here again as well. So we got love toward the church, though them just as you do, you will do, sending them or sending forward, manner worthy of God. So sending them forward. Them forward, and this is as a subject actually. So, and in English we have it a you send, and you do, or you will do well, you prepare, you accomplish, you practice, you cause. So you're doing this. So we have a verb here. Very good. You will send them forward. And let's pull this out. Interesting, in English it comes across as a little different. So verb, indicative. Okay. On their journey. So, and that is on their journey. So forward. Let's see what this one is. You will do well. You will do well. It's pulled way up there. And that would be all the way connected back to here. You will do well. And that is an adverb. So, interestingly, that probably connects back into up here. You send. In the manner that you send them, or in the sending them, you will do well. And that's connected back to that. Them forward on their journey. Them forward on their journey. I see. So it's kind of something maybe added. Let's look a little bit some differences in the versions here. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. They have tested. Okay, you will do well. I see. It's a little bit different order here. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. So on their, this is all connected into here. Appears to be in a manner worthy of God. You will do well, and this appears to be an adverb. This concept in English it comes across as a. It's interpreted differently, brought in as a. Looks like a subject verb. Do well would be the adverb. So, and this is, I see. So you will do well is this verb up here. So verb and then and adverb. So you will do, and then that would be here, like this, and then well. So when, and that connects in. So and this connects just a little different order in the New King James. Interesting. And let's pull this verb back. So I was just kind of adjusting for that different order. And we don't need that there. You send, and he will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. So let's go back in here. Now as I kind of learned about that, send before I see. Okay, so then this is way up here. You send them forward on their journey. And that's not the verb. Sorry about that. This is kind of interesting to go through and we learn basically a concept of sending them on their journey. And that's what is going on here. The Gaius, the beloved one, is the one sending them forward. You sending them forward. It's kind of a appears to be kind of a subject concept. You send them forward on their journey in a manner worthy of God, you will do well. So Gaius will do well if he sends them forward on their journey. So we got some of that broke down and thought through, and now let's go to the next area here. Jumping back to verse 6. Okay. And then verse 7, and we have because. Now let's do this. Some versions have for, and this would be in NASB and net 2. So for, or like basically for this purpose or this consequence maybe, but because. And if you really want to get into it, you can click on the word for here because it has Strong's behind it. And let's see, for the I see that connects into, there we go. And for, let's look into this. It's a coordinating participle. Verily, thence, hence, in truth, yea, then, why, giving a reason or explanation for. So because this is the reason they went forth, and for his name's sake. Who went forth? They went forth. And so we can leave this one here as kind of a conjunction. If you like, you can put like this. And a kind of a connecting word. Because they went forth. And let's look a little bit and see about for. They went forth. And that is a verb. And we can get that right in there. Roll it in. And we just put it like that. And here we go. For his name's sake. So for his name's sake. For the name. And remember how that had that in there. For the sake of the name. For his name's sake. Interesting there if you notice that. For the sake. And we'll just go for the sake of the name. And that is the NASB. And then the on behalf of the, and that's even in quotes, the name. And so of course they're looking back to God or looking to Jesus Christ, who is God. So we go in here and we'll just make those notes. Those are just a couple different version in differences. For his name's sake. And we would say that is in the genitive. So we're going to go jump it back over here. Going to pull this. It's neither a subject, not the direct object or indirect object. It's out in here though, in this area. Taking nothing from the Gentiles. Taking from the Gentiles. So they didn't take anything, and it's we basically have a yes. So nothing is the direct object, and here it's a participle. I think in English we use something like gerund in this particular situation, but this is them. They were taking nothing. As they were going forth, they didn't take anything. So kind of a little bit of a subject concept here as well. So we'll put that down a little lower, and kind of get into here a little bit. Very interesting. And we're going to put this into. So as they went forth, so this is them going forth or taking nothing, they went forth. And we can throw a little bit of this in here as well. Nothing, and remember this is the direct object. From the Gentiles, and remember that's connected to. Let's get back in here. From the Gentiles. Okay. Excellent. So you can kind of start seeing some of the points forming here. We could go, there's a point, and there's a point, kind of where the sentence divisions are. And lastly, we're going to get into this last point. We therefore ought. So we ought. And we have a conjunction. What we're going to do is divide it right here and here. So we have the subject, subject. Therefore is a conjunction, which is like a connecting word. We therefore, and it kind of often refers back to what was just previously discussed, ought. And this is ought to owe. And this is, once again, it's kind of that situation where it's we, even we ought. But so we have a verb in the indicative, kind of factual from the point of the author. We therefore ought to receive, and I believe this will become it is a infinitive verb, if you kind of, and that is to receive is the infinitive. Such is actually a separate word here. And if you like this, it's an infinitive. Such, and such is the direct object. Now, you can get into what's a direct object and things like that by going to an English grammar and digging in. That, and here we have another conjunction, but this is like a sub conjunction. Since it's sub, we're kind of going to push the whole concept over and then connect it. We may become fellow workers for the truth. So we may, so fellow workers, we may, and that's a we may become is how do you say this? Subjunctive. It's a verb and it's a subjunctive. This is kind of expressing a wish or a desire. More probably in the desire or possibility realm. Wish is more of the optative, which we're not going to get into right now. Fellow workers is the subject, and that is what is important. What the writer here is expressing, John is expressing to Gaius for the truth, or in the truth, and that is in an indirect object concept. One more over. Indirect object, and that's what ID stands for. So now we have it divided out. We have some grammar. We will get into some divisions a little bit more and some word studies next time as we come to a close on this study. So thank you so much for joining us today as we work through 3 John, doing Bible study methods, doing some grammar and things like that. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless.